Okay, let's unpack this. So today we're diving deep into, well, a really aggressive economic maneuver, maybe one of the biggest in recent trade history.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about that huge pharmaceutical standoff,
Right. The one triggered when the U.S. decided to slap that massive 100% tariff on medicines coming in from several countries.
including India, which is key here. This wasn't some minor fee.
No, definitely not. It was an economic sledgehammer, really. And the stated goal from the U.S. side seemed pretty straightforward at first glance.
Right. Protect American jobs, boost Made in America,
Yeah.
force domestic companies to ramp up production, cut reliance on overseas manufacturing.
But the reaction globally was immediate alarm bells, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Straight away, specialists jumped in saying, look, if you hit a major global medicine supplier like this, especially with a 100%
Yeah.
tariff,
Yeah.
you're not going to suddenly get a boom in domestic production overnight. What you will get is astronomical price hikes.
And drug shortages.
Exactly. Catastrophic ones, potentially. Hitting U.S. consumers, right in their health and their wallets.
And the choice of target here, India, that's critical to understand. It's not just any country.
No way. It's often called the pharmacy of the world, isn't it?
Mm.
For decades, India's been the go-to source for reliable and, crucially, cheap generic drugs.
They're basically the foundation for healthcare in many developing nations, and they help keep costs down everywhere else too, including the West.
So targeting them wasn't just targeting a country. It felt like targeting the whole global supply chain, like an economic attack on affordable healthcare itself.
Which makes India's response even more fascinating. They didn't seem to back down or get drawn into long, tense talks.
No, they didn't. They saw this tariff wall, this economic aggression, and apparently decided to use it as a springboard.
A springboard? How so?
Well, the analysis we looked at calls it a solid strategy. They basically aim to turn this whole thing into an opportunity, a chance to sort of realign the global market.
Okay, that's the proactive response we need to dig into first. This counter strategy wasn't just defensive, it sounds like an aggressive pivot. What were the main pillars?
Right, it had four core directions, all designed for like immediate resilience. First, find new markets, fast. Get aggressive about reaching countries outside the U.S. sphere.
Okay, new markets. What else?
Second, a huge push to boost their own domestic production. More volume, better quality. Third, strengthen partnerships, particularly with, say, emerging economies or non-traditional allies.
Makes sense. And the last one.
Flexibility. Make the supply chain incredibly nimble so they could reroute shipments almost instantly if needed.
And this domestic push, it wasn't just companies acting alone, was it? The government was fully behind this.
Oh, completely. Policies like Atmanirbhar, the self-reliant policy, signal the national commitment. But the real engines, I think, were things like the PLI scheme.
The production-linked incentive scheme
Right.
and those bulk drug parks. They sound technical, but explain how they actually worked on the ground quickly.
Sure. So the PLI scheme. Think of it as a massive financial boost, but tied directly to results. The government offered serious money, but only if companies actually scaled up production and increased sales.
Oh, so it wasn't just a handout. It rewarded actual growth and speed.
Precisely. If you could make X amount more of a certain drug domestically, you got paid for it. It made rapid scaling suddenly very, very attractive.
Okay, and the bulk drug parks? How did they help?
They tackled the infrastructure problem. Before, manufacturing might have been scattered. These parks are like giant integrated zones specifically for pharma.
So shared resources.
Exactly. Cheaper power, water, easier compliance, shared testing facilities. It just naturally lowered the cost of production for everyone in the park, making them more competitive globally.
And the big strategic goal behind all this internal effort.
Was to cut that reliance on foreign raw materials, especially the APIs, the active pharmaceutical ingredients. That was India's historical weak spot, relying on other countries, notably China, for those.
Right. Eliminate that potential choke point. So while this policy stuff is being set up, what happened immediately? You mentioned ships already sailing towards the U.S.
Yeah, that's where the drama unfolded. These ships, packed with essential medicines, suddenly had nowhere to go, or rather, their destination was now effectively blocked by that tariff wall.
So what did they do? Just turn around?
It was apparently incredibly fast. Indian logistics teams basically rerouted entire fleets almost overnight. They pivoted towards those new markets identified in the strategy.
Which were?
Europe, Africa, Latin America, Russia. Those became the immediate new destinations.
Okay, but hold on. Rerouting something as complex and regulated as pharmaceuticals, that sounds risky. You can't just send a drug meant for the U.S. market to, say, Brazil and expect it to be okayed instantly, can you?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And it seems India played it smart. They leveraged their existing reputation for quality, first off. And second, they didn't just dump the cargo. They apparently provided a lot of support on the ground in those new countries. Logistical help, rapid testing data, help with the local regulatory hurdles.
Ah, so they offered like a full service package to make the transition smooth?
Exactly, a full-service pivot. And that approach is why the story takes this unexpected turn. The U.S. intended to isolate India economically.
But that's not what happened.
Not at all. The surprise was that India's pharma exports didn't decline overall. They just shifted, structurally shifted very quickly.
So instead of being isolated, they actually solidified their reputation elsewhere.
You got it. Many countries saw the U.S. action, saw India's supply chain hold steady, and basically said, okay, these guys are the reliable suppliers. New deals got signed fast. Countries wanted to lock in supplies outside that volatile U.S. trade situation.
And demand actually increased from some regions.
Yeah, particularly Europe, which got nervous about supply shocks, and critically, African nations, which rely so heavily on affordable Indian generics for public health. This whole episode kind of boosted India's credibility as a consistent partner.
It wasn't just about redirecting existing shipments either, was it? The analysis mentions deeper moves.
Right. Establishing a more permanent global footprint, they started setting up local manufacturing joint ventures in key countries.
Which one stood out in that phase?
Brazil, Egypt, Indonesia, Russia.
Right.
These are the main hubs for this decentralized manufacturing push.
So producing in those regions closer to the end user.
Exactly. It does two things. It builds stronger local ties, and it makes them less vulnerable to future tariffs or geopolitical games played along traditional trade routes.
Yeah.
It sort of bypasses the old system.
That's quite a combination. It sounds like sharp business strategy mixed with, well, a projection of humanitarian responsibility, making sure essential drugs kept flowing.
I think that's a fair assessment. That mix of strategic calculation and, let's say, perceived reliability really cemented their global position during that chaos.
Okay, if we connect this to the bigger picture, let's swing back to the U.S. The report suggests the tariff backfired pretty spectacularly. But why couldn't U.S. domestic manufacturers just step up and fill the gap? That was the whole point, right?
Yeah, and that failure is really key to understanding this whole episode. The U.S. wanted to boost its own production, but you can't just flip a switch on pharma manufacturing.
Especially not API production, I imagine.
Exactly. It needs very specialized infrastructure, takes ages for regulatory approval, the supply chains are incredibly complex. Even if U.S. companies wanted to, the time lag and, frankly, the cost difference were just too big to overcome quickly.
So the U.S. essentially cut off its main source of affordable drugs before its own industry could possibly catch up.
That's pretty much it. The U.S. pharma system actually relies quite heavily on those cheap foreign generics to keep overall costs manageable. When that supply suddenly got hit with a 100% tariff, you saw immediate, serious shortages of generics in hospitals. And remember, generics are disproportionately used by lower-income populations. Health experts started warning not just about drug prices going up, but insurance premiums, too, for everyone.
Let's just pause on the cost aspect, because the numbers cited are just, well, they make the human impact very clear.
They're just staggering.
We're told Indian generics are the backbone of treatment for something like 45% of poor Americans. What did this tariff actually do to the price they paid?
Shocking. A drug that might have cost, say, $10 for the patient when imported from India suddenly cost $200.
$200? That's a 1,900% increase.
Yeah, it's the 100% tariffs plus all the knock-on effects. New